Little France, on the outskirts of Edinburgh, and a new hospital is taking shape. The new Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh is the biggest new acute teaching hospital unit to be built in the UK for almost 50 years. And at 126,000 square metres, this is the largest construction site in Scotland. The Edinburgh Royal Joint Venture company is the driving force behind this massive construction project. Here is a story of their involvement in this historic new development.
Lots of clients who procure buildings and various facilities associated with the construction industry have been examining how they can get a better product from building and civil engineering contractors. And I think that this particular project will give us in the joint venture an opportunity to measure up to those standards, not just for this project, but for this project and beyond.
Obviously, it'll be quite sad to leave a building of such distinction.
I think it will be certainly mixed feelings, but I think that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages.
It's just impossible to deliver 21st century medicine from 18th century buildings.
The Royal Infirmary has been a significant part of Edinburgh for 266 years, and during that time, it has developed from humble beginnings into a world-renowned institution. From its current home here at Lauriston Place, the Royal Infirmary has provided expert clinical care to the population of Edinburgh for over 120 years.
The present Royal Infirmary was built around 1879. You can see by looking around why it's a difficult site for us actually to deliver 21st century medicine from. Every square inch of space is taken up with temporary buildings, with buildings containing engineering that was never thought of back in the last century. Every one of the old buildings has an A listing or a B listing from Historic Scotland, so the actual renovations and modifications that you can do to these buildings is severely limited.
Around 2,000 patients are treated each day at the Royal Infirmary. And to ensure that the new hospital meets all the needs of its future users, ERJV have had to fully understand the problems associated with the current buildings.
One of the issues we have is large distances for patients to travel when they're moved from the unit. And more importantly, for investigations, if they move down to X-ray, that's quite a long way for them to go. Staff are taken away from the unit.
Patients are involved in long travel distances. They come in at accident and emergency, they then travel a long distance by trolley or by wheelchair to a ward. They need to get taken from a ward to a diagnostic facility or to some other facility. The hospital wasn't designed to take these new technologies, so therefore they're spread around the whole of the site.
Currently, the theatres throughout the hospital are single or twin units, so they're spread geographically very widely throughout the hospital, which means that staffing them and equipping them is very resource intensive, and moving people around, moving equipment around becomes quite a problem.
This morning, for example, I moved a patient to the CT scanner from accident and emergency, and that took us along a corridor with, I think there are about 12 right angle bends and one lift journey.
A visitor can be walking along the same corridor as a desperately ill patient is being pushed along in a trolley with umpteen bits of high-tech gizmos attached to them.
I think we have to move forward because the building is now in a situation where it's not really coping with the demands of the service.
The Royal Infirmary had been on the cards since about the 1920s, and various schemes had been put forward and had each time failed because there was not public money available. It was decided that the only way the project was ever going to get off the ground was to actually fund it through private finance, and PFI was a new initiative that had been brought forward, and it was deemed appropriate to get a new hospital built for Edinburgh.
The government's private finance initiative is the initiative the Conservative government set up in 1994 to fund public infrastructure using private money. It is hugely unpopular with a whole section of the community, I think perhaps unfairly.
The PFI process provided the opportunity where it was seen by a number of people that they could actually provide the facilities that they had been looking for many years in one location out in Little France.
But there can be no doubt about it. The reason we are building a hospital out at Little France today is only because of PFI. If it were not for PFI, the public sector would not be able to fund this hospital at this point in time.
The Edinburgh Royal Joint Venture Company is a partnership between Balfour Beatty, Morrison Construction and Hayden Young, and all three companies bring vital management expertise to the job. Balfour Beatty and Morrison's provide essential building and construction skills, while Hayden Young provides service expertise.
The main advantage in the PFI route is it allows the contractor to get very, very close to the client. And I think that is something that contractors have been seeking to do for quite a number of years now.
We have a very good working relationship with the joint venture, and I think many of the things and institutions that we've developed in the early stages of this project will carry forward to a lot of other projects, both for us in the NHS and I think for the joint venture in future projects. We took a decision very early on in the whole process to involve as many members of staff in the design of the new hospital as possible. And that's quite a radical departure for the NHS. Normally, a small committee of people are appointed, they look at activity figures and they determine the size and shape of any new hospital.
Sometimes I think people imagine when new buildings are going up that the people at the shop floor are never asked, but that was not the case here.
It's taken a while to build the relationship, as you would expect in a job of this size, but I'm pretty pleased with the results of that, and we actually have now a very good relationship both with the project director on behalf of the trust but also his team as well. Where need be, we do meet face to face with the clinicians as well to understand what their needs are, and the relationship I think is very good, and it's certainly developed over a period of time such to the point that we have daily contact, formal and informal, to get problems sorted.
We had probably in excess of 500 ordinary members of staff who, in addition to their normal activity of nursing or doctoring or managing, were actually involved in the design of this new hospital. The biggest challenge was to get every one of these people committed to the project and to get a result with which they were completely happy. The way the new hospital has been designed is each of these facilities are designed close to the actual wards where the patients are being treated.
Our flows of patients, staff and resources should be much improved.
The patient's journey, so to speak, is much more sensible, I think, than it is at the moment.
Staff will be much closer to the actual treatment areas that they're required to treat patients in.
It's like having X-ray department immediately adjacent to your own department. We're a big user, so that's a lot easier for patients.
The actual operations that the staff carry out will be more focused around patient units.
The theatres are grouped together in suites pertaining to particular specialties, but are also in a long row, so there's flexibility there.
The design of the hospital separates what we call the public street from the hospital street, so patients are going to be moved along corridors where the public won't be allowed to enter.
The fact that we're using cubicles to some extent will also give patients more privacy.
We're going to have 4-bed wards with ensuite facilities. We're going to have single rooms for patients. So that's the single biggest benefit, I think. The hospital will be designed to respect patient dignity and much easier, therefore, for staff to treat patients.
From a construction point of view, we are finished the structural works, the steel frame is up, we're currently going through the cladding and the roofing, and at the beginning of August we actually start the internal services and fit out of the finishes on the partitions, ceilings, etc.
A construction project of this size requires expert project management, and ERJV have had to develop new systems and new ways of working that are specific to the job.
On this project, we're using an electronic database called Documentum. That system allows us to electronically communicate correspondence, design information, drawings and photograph between ourselves and our clients and our design team. And one advantage that the system gives us is it gives us much more certainty in terms of communication. It's much faster and therefore it's much more efficient. We've been looking to modularize as much of the construction as possible. And by that, what I mean is prefabricating as much of the construction product as possible off the site. In the ward areas, for example, there is a lot of repetitiveness. And in examining how we can improve production and efficiency, we have, for example, produced toilet pods by factory production methods off-site.
We're in month 11 in the project. We've gone about 20% of the way through the job. We have to hand over phase 1 in October 2001 and phase 2 in December 2002. So It appears on the face of it there's quite a long time to go, but there's a lot of work to fit in. There's 80% of the work left to do, and it will be a big push to get it done.
Every day is different. There's always an obstacle comes your way. There's always something crops up that has to be addressed. Every day's a challenge. The team I'm involved in work really well. We have a good understanding with each other. Everybody knows everybody gets on well together. Which makes for good working practice, really.
The partnership between Balfour Beatty, Morrisons and Hayden works very well on site. In fact, to the extent that most of the people who are working in the joint venture now have almost eliminated their parent company identities and are working as joint venture members.
In the first year, we've established a very good team structure and a very good organisation, and we have very good people within the joint venture. What we want to do in the coming years is enhance and fine-tune those project management skills, not only for the remainder of this project, but for the future as well. In effect, we want to grow our people for the future. What better way to do it than a project that spans the 20th and the 21st century?
Management of a construction project on this scale is not just confined to the areas of design and build, however.
One aspect of project management skills is obviously working with the design team and the client. But on a project of this nature, you have to look at a much wider picture in terms of serving the local community, how you interface with the local community, and how you also interface with the operative.
ERJV have taken a proactive approach in extending links with local residents.
Initially, the neighbours were, I would suggest, fairly hostile towards the development. They had a lack of information, and we set out to inform them as best we could. We've kept them informed through newsletters. We have a newsletter from time to time, and we have posted them to the residents. We've also had some follow-up meetings, and in April we invited them to the site to see how progress was after 7 months of working. I would say that they were most impressed at what had been achieved in a relatively short time.
Throughout the design of the project, the environment has always been considered. The design of the hospital is such that from no area do you get a full appreciation of the size of the hospital, through the shaping of the drum at accident and emergency, the university, and from the curve of the ward arc. All these reduce the visual impact so that you're only seeing small parts of the hospital from any location. Under phase 1 of the landscaping, we have planted somewhere in the region of 5,000 trees to the north of the site. These link in with Craigmillar community woodland to form part of the overall scheme for the area. We also have further planting to do on the south of the site, which will be done under phase 2. One of the main challenges to the environment would have been the diversion of the 2 burns which ran through the site, and the decision was made again in design that should be incorporated fully into the landscaping of the hospital. We also considered the specific needs of indigenous wildlife. That was covered in the form of shelving. A lock-in was introduced at the entrance to the hospital. Measures taken so far have proven fairly successful. We've had 2 ducks back in the burns at the middle of the year, so I think things are working out quite well.
Links between the Royal Infirmary and the University of Edinburgh Medical School span almost 270 years. And from the earliest stages of design, ERJV have had to fully integrate the needs of the medical school into the new hospital buildings at Little France. In addition to teaching the next generation of doctors, university medical staff make an important contribution to patient care within the Royal Infirmary. And in the area of research, the medical school has earned a worldwide reputation for its work into the causes and new treatments of human disease.
The Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh very much lives in a symbiotic relationship with the Medical School of Edinburgh University.
Our space tends to be scattered across multiple sites. That's not an efficient way in which to conduct either research or provide clinical care, and the space needs to be designed in a more efficient and coherent way, just as methods of treatment and investigation of disease are changing rapidly, so methods of undertaking research and teaching are changing rapidly. And we've got to have buildings that are sufficiently flexible to be able to adapt to change as it occurs.
It's been important that we liaise closely with the medical school and their representatives to ensure that we actually match their needs as much as matching the needs of the hospital as well.
The new site has provision for expansion for the medical school where they will bring research institutes onto the site as well as their actual medical school itself. So that will foster even closer and better relationships between the university and the trust. Almost everything that happens on this site will move out to Little France in something like a 6-week period early in 2003, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we've got, is just organising that, just the move of all equipment, patients and staff at that point in time.
When the project is completed in December 2002, we're going to be handing over one of the most technically advanced acute teaching hospitals in the UK, if not in Europe, and it'll have been a privilege to have been part of the team that's actually been involved in providing these facilities.
It's very satisfying to be involved in a project of such importance both to Edinburgh and to the health service in general.
It's a high-profile job, high-quality job, and at the end of the day, it's a good one for your CV.
It's unlikely that most of us here will ever work in something quite this large again.
It really is going to be a hospital ready for the new millennium, and is going to service Edinburgh for a long time to come. For me personally, I've moved house to come up and be part of this project, and I'm certainly very pleased and proud to be involved.
If you work in the building and civil engineering industry, then you're used to challenges, and I personally have been involved in a whole variety of challenges. This particular challenge is different to the others, perhaps bigger than the others, but nevertheless, I think beyond the end of this project, I'll be looking for a new challenge.